Hello everyone, this is Kyle from DailyXvision.com. Today I'll be showing you how to properly optimize the MyArcade theme from MyArcadePlugin. I said I was going to write a tutorial on how to do this, and I'm going to quickly give you a video demonstration of what to do. This is not going to be the most optimal settings for all servers and server configs. Clearly, if you're using a VPS or a dedicated server, you'll be using different settings, but this is the ideal solution for shared hosting to a lightweight VPS. So what we're going to start off with is we're going to start by configuring W3 Total Cache. W3 Total Cache is definitely the most powerful caching market on the plugin on the market. It comes with a ton of features, most notably the page caching and the browser caching, which is what we're going to be using. Page caching will serve a static version of your page. This means that instead of calling all the JavaScript and files, they'll already be there. The browser will still have to make trips to download them, but it won't have to call and look where they are, and it'll just save a lot of database calls and ultimately reduce load time. That being said, it can cause problems. Disk Enhanced is not compatible with all hostings. Disk Basic is mostly compatible with everything. Disk Enhanced is definitely the better option though, so I recommend using it whenever you can. If you ever had the option to use opcode or memcached, always use Disk Enhanced because it's the smarter way to actually save static pages. The other option we'll be using is the browser cache module. Browser caching will tell the browser to save certain files like images and CSS files for a specified amount of time. This is great because it reduces the load time for return users, which is what you're ultimately hoping to get. Reoccurring users that are signed up for your website. I'm not going to be showing you how to configure a CDN or any of the other settings because they're ultimately useless for you. If you do have a CDN though, you will be able to follow the documentation and you'll be able to set up the CDN accordingly. But I'm going to go into the page cache settings and show you what to configure. In the page cache, you'll want to cache the front page, feed, site, categories, tags, and comments. If you're using an SSL certificate, then you'll want to cache the SSL HTTP request uniquely. You'll want to check this option. You'll only want to cache request from your website, and you will typically not want to cache pages for logged in users because things like BuddyPress and BBPress and WooCommerce can have issues when doing so. The cached preload is an interval that's set to automatically fetch your pages and save them into cache. So what this is saying is every 900 seconds create static copies of 10 pages. Your sitemap URL is where it's going to help get it. A compliant sitemap can be used to specify the pages to maintain the prime cache and blah 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 due to its completeness. That's if you have WordPress SEO, there's an extension that you can use to pop this. Also, preload the cache upon post publish events. Whenever a post is published, then you'll want to fetch the preload. Typically, we don't worry about feed types with this kind of plugin because MyArcadePlugin will be pushing out a lot of posts and it's not necessarily compatible with RSS readers. You won't really care to see that. So for the most part, we'll skip this. The rest of these details are pretty much fine for the default settings, so make sure you save your settings afterwards. The next step is to go into your browser cache. Browser caching, while not an actual server-side caching, as we already said, it does reduce the load time greatly for users on their own computers. The main thing to do is to come into the browser caching and under the general settings, tick the following items. Don't tick the enable gzip compression and make sure to not set cookies for static files. Then scroll down to the media and other files and uncheck the enable gzip compression. Media files cannot be gzipped. They don't reduce their load time, and it doesn't reduce their load time. It doesn't make them smaller. It ultimately is just a waste of server resources at the time. So I always uncheck it. Some would like to argue otherwise, but for consistency and just for simple logic, I never have gzip on media files. It also might help with Swift files and other files that are not completely compatible with gzip. The next thing we'll be looking at configuring is Auto Optimize. Auto Optimize is a plugin that will help you combine and minify JavaScript and CSS. For the most part, if you're using the default plugins, you should be able to just check these options and be perfectly fine. That being said, if you have any inline JavaScript or certain advertisements, they could be broken if you use this. You can typically leave this box checked. If your server is not setting expires headers and not using gzip, then uncheck this option and it should work. Let's reload the page real quick. Upon reloading the page, everything is still absolutely functional. Nothing's really different. The only thing that's out of place is because of bad games that I pulled in. But everything is functional. The only thing that should be different is if we look at our source code. As we can see in the source code, instead of having 30, 20, or even like 20 plus files for CSS, we now have a couple. We have 3 files, which is a reasonable amount. It can't combine them anymore because in doing so, it may break things due to dependency issues. That being said, 3 files is perfectly acceptable for any normal website. And as we can see, they're quite lengthy. Except this one. This one is WooCommerce, and the reason that WooCommerce has its own is because WooCommerce has dependency issues when combined. You'll also take note that all the CSS, all the HTML of the page was compressed from what would be several thousand lines now says it's only a couple, about 3 lines. Now, while it's still a lot of on-page code, it definitely reduces the overall load time. The other thing that you'll look at is there's no JavaScript files or inline JavaScript. Well, for the most part. You'll get some inline things from Yoast and some other WordPress items such as the admin-ajax. And you'll get something from the theme, which is HTML compliance for Internet Explorer 9. Anything that's an if IE 9 does not need to be compressed, nor will it affect your load time in any way. But the majority of your JavaScript is combined into one file, and it's deferred. This means that the JavaScript will not be render blocking and will load much faster on the website. It also means that it's already compressed and has reduced the overall HTTP request quite dramatically. To test this, we just have to open up the file, and as we can see, it's quite extensive. A lot of on-page JavaScript. It does not remove special comments like this, despite the fact that it could. But it should not increase the JavaScript size that much. The only times you'll expect it to increase it is if there's just long streams of it, which are ultimately useless, in which case Auto Optimize can be hooked in and installed with the API, or by modifying the core files. The next tool that you'll want to use, and the last tool, is Image Optimizer. Even though MyArcadeTheme has the ability to load images with async, or lazy load them, not with async, they can still get out of control. And Image Optimizer is still able to compress the images even more. For instance, the slider uses full-size screenshots. If I had a full-size screenshot in this slider, what would happen is it would be ridiculous on the overall page size and it would go up, especially when these things are downloaded and are not normally compressed. So what we can do is we can use Image Optimizer to properly configure it. Clearly, I'm not able to do it since this is a local installation, but I can still walk you through the steps to optimize it. The key things to enable are remove metadata and lossy PNG optimization. Lossy PNG optimization means that there will be a decrease in image quality, but it should be so minimal that you won't even notice. Then we have remove metadata, which removes useless metadata, typically from cameras or computers that isn't necessarily needed, but still adds size to the file. Make sure you save these changes. Go into the advanced settings now. You have OptiPNG and PNG out optimization levels. Typically, I leave it at the default level of 2. You shouldn't need to increase it any more than that. If you do, make sure you go only up to about 24. Anything more and your server will probably start nagging and come to a stall. For PNG optimization, always leave it at level 2. At levels 0 and 1, you'll notice that your CPU will skyrocket and your host will probably get sparred with you. While the rest of these settings may seem confusing, the only one you need to worry about is the scheduled optimization. Scheduled optimization will automatically compress images from MyArcadePlugin. This was integrated in one of the recent updates to Image Optimizers, so now if you have any images upon upload, it will now be optimized to the schedule scan. However, if you have not compressed images beforehand, before you use this setting, you'll need to place the line to them here. Typically, it'll look something like this. Slash content, slash thumbs, slash Sierra, slash something. It'll be something along these lines. After doing so, your images will automatically be compressed and it will reduce your overall load time. And there you go. That's how you properly optimize the MyArcade theme from MyArcadePlugin. Thank you very much for watching. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, put them in the comments below, and I'll make sure to help you out. Thank you very much for watching, and goodbye.